A man from Seattle, a snake, and a mad housewife. What could possibly go wrong?
Margie tried telling Dennis that buying a boathouse was a terrible idea, but Dennis wouldn't have it. "It was just me out there at Grays Harbor, and we did just fine," he would always insist to her when she would argue with him about his inability to survive out on the water. "I hear you, Dennis," she scowled, "but the two of you were much younger then than you are now, and I quite like our living arrangements." One day, Dennis had had quite enough of her whining and naysaying, and went out and called up a realtor. "Margie, now don't be mad at me, and don't you start your whining and naysaying all over again, but I need another adventure. I'm tired of being in this stuffy old house doing the same darn thing every day. So I went out and I got myself that boathouse." "And which body of water did you buy this boathouse for?" she said through gritted teeth. "I didn't even think that it was legal to live out on Holler, Bitter, or Green. I'm moving to Nevada, Lake Mojave." Certain that Dennis was becoming senile and had been conned, Margie tried to have Dennis give her the name of the realtor, but he refused. "Oh, no, Margie, no you don't. I'm tired of your whining and naysaying. This boathouse is mine and mine alone. No girls allowed, or batty old ladies in their 70s, whichever have you." Margie watched with disgust as Dennis packed up his clothes into his dingy suitcase. When the day came for him to fly out to Nevada, she didn't say a word to him. In fact, she made sure she was nowhere to be found. "I won't be back, Margie. The lakes are a calling, and I must go," he yelled out to an empty house. Margie was not concerned. She had a secret that she had kept from Dennis in their 50-odd years of marriage together, and she was certain that this secret would bring him back to her sooner rather than later, begging her for forgiveness over his tomfoolery. When Dennis arrived at his new boathouse, he looked at it with glee. "Now," he thought to himself, "this is how every man should live out the rest of his days. No women, no children, just a boat, beer, bass, and no other responsibilities." He unpacked some of his suitcases until he was able to find his fisherman's cap and his windbreaker, and set himself out on the boat dock to take in the view. He'd have to buy supplies in the morning, but the sunset alone told him that he'd enjoy his time here, and that this was where he belonged. The best part about all of it was that there was no Margie and none of her naysaying or whining. Dennis put on some Sinatra, ran himself a bubble bath, and got ready to relax. "There's no Margie around to make fun of me for doing some good old pampering, that's for sure." He settled himself into the tub, letting the warm water and jets massage the folds of his skin, and began to drift lazily into a slumber. As Sinatra sang, "For what is a man? What has he got? If not himself, then he has naught." He awoke in a panicked state, tripping over himself as he tried too quickly to get out of the tub. He stood, naked and shaking in horror, as he stared at the tub, trying to make sense of his reality. He had been relaxing in the tub, and then there was something. Yes, the record had begun to skip over and over. "Gnaw, gnaw, gnaw," echoed as the record player began to catch a blaze. As he tried to get up from the tub, he felt something slither against his legs. There was a spitting sound, ringing and growing louder from the faucet of the tub, and the faucet began to run on its own as the restraints held him tightly in place. A large snake began to coil its way around his neck and began suffocating him. When he passed out from the constriction, he awoke to everything exactly how he had left it before he had taken his bath. He wasn't sure what had happened, but he felt an unnerving sense that it was all too real not to be true. The next night, one of the fish that he had been cleaning came alive and began to bite at him with sharp teeth. And the night after that, he awoke to the feeling of thousands of spiders crawling all over his body and into his mouth and pinching him with their fangs. Like the nights before, he awoke with no injury, but the ordeal was beginning to become too much for poor Dennis. It didn't take much to convince himself that it was time for him to leave the houseboat and its witchcraft to go back home to Margie and her whining. When he made it back to Seattle, Margie was there at the door with a knowing smile on her face.